there's all this physical phenomenon that is happening. The mountain is shaking. There is a sound of a shofar that gets louder and louder. And there's lightning and thunder. And one of the verses in the Torah says, Har Sinai Ashen Kulo, that Mount Sinai was full of smoke. So we're told, it's explained in Kabbalah and Chassidut, that this word smoking, Ashan, has three letters, Ayin, Shin, and Nun. The Ayin represents Olam, the first letter of the word for world. The Shin is Shana, which is year or time. And the Nun is Nefesh, which means soul. So this word, smoking, Ashan, represents space, time, and soul. So the question, what does that mean? Why does the Torah have to tell us that Mount Sinai was completely filled with smoke? So we're told in the Midrash that the experience of the people was practically a once-in-a-history type of experience. God revealed himself in a way that he had never revealed himself before or after to mankind. So obviously the people's experience was also exceptional. And Kabbalah and Chassidut explain that all of the dimensions of space, time, and soul all merged together. In science, there's a word for this called synesthesia, where sometimes our senses cross. And this is represented by another verse in explaining the phenomena as what was happening at that time. Because it said that the people saw the sounds of the shofar. So Rashi has to explain, what does it mean they saw the sounds of the shofar? It means they could see what ordinarily is only heard. And Rashi adds something that only happened at Mount Sinai. Now, it's actually true today that rare individuals also are able to cross their senses. But here we had an entire people experiencing all the dimensions of space, time, and soul merging together. This is what the Midrash means, that the seven heavens opened up in their experience of receiving the Torah. Now, this is a very, very interesting idea, especially in regards to modern science. Until 100 years ago, science and man only thought about the three dimensions of space. 100 years ago, Albert Einstein revealed that time also is conceived as a dimension, what he called the space-time continuum. In other words, you cannot separate time and space. They're part of one fabric that makes up the universe. So already the Torah was alluding to this idea of time and space. But what about soul? Where can we see that science talks about soul? So we actually see today in the cutting edge of quantum physics is the incredibly fascinating idea of how much does human consciousness affect reality. And quantum physics now posits that human consciousness is not a passive observer. It actually helps create reality. So when we look back at the account of giving the Torah at Mount Sinai, when it says that the mountain was full of smoke, Ashan, and we're told that the people had this experience of all of the dimensions, so we can understand it even today according to modern science, the idea of the merger of space, time, and soul.
Reality of the illusion. The heat is on, and the illusion is melting. All on earth are soul extensions of your true and higher selves. It is as though you dipped your higher self's index finger, if it had such an appendage, which possessed all your physical senses, into the illusory environment that humanity appears to inhabit, to test it, and found the experience enthralling, indeed captivating. So much so that it forgot itself and became totally engrossed in the tiny, and I assure you that it is indeed tiny, environment into which it had dipped that finger. So engrossed that it altogether forgot its own magnificence and the joy that its eternal existence at one with Source, in reality, in heaven, brought it in every moment. Of course, that finger dipping lasted but an instant. Nevertheless, it still seems to be ongoing. The initial state of enthrallment has long since passed, and you, the soul extensions, are not at all happy with the situation in which you find yourselves. You want to return to your natural state at one with God, and that desire and intent is leading you to wakefulness, to complete the necessary preparations that will allow the withdrawal of that finger from the illusory environment in which it seems to have become permanently ensnared. Perhaps you could say that it has become frozen in the icy pond of time. It is your illusion that you imagined and built, and that you support by the power of your intent to maintain its apparent reality. You are very conflicted about it because you have made it seem so real. The idea of letting it dissolve into nothingness, from which you imagined it into being, frightens you because, naturally, due to the severe limitations it seemingly imposes on you, within it you are beings of limited consciousness, limited awareness, limited intelligence, and limited creative abilities. You imagine that if it dissolves, then so will you. It appears to be the only reality, and you do not want to lose it, and therefore yourselves. You do not want to cease to exist, as you imagine might, could, or even most definitely would happen in those circumstances. The very thought of the void, of nothingness, terrifies you. But such a state does not and could not exist, because all existence is within God and is consequently eternal and everlasting. You are all, to a greater or lesser degree, depending on your chosen life paths, self-aware, and therefore you believe that you exist, because you experience and feel alive through your bodily senses, and that aspect of you that is aware, that believes, that witnesses, is the eternal you created by God. On an altogether different level, your real self knows that what it is experiencing with that index finger is unreal, and that it will return to a state of utter joy when it withdraws it from the illusion. Your awakening is the process of withdrawing that digit from the dark, frightening, murky, and freezing waters into which the illusion changed, as the sense of separation, abandonment, and aloneness with which it provided you overwhelmed you. Your strong imaginative powers enabled you to make the instant during which you dipped your fingers into the illusory reality that you had built stretch out over eons, time